China is buying up land and businesses in strategic locations all around the world, and this has become a cause for concern for many. Nations have blocked the purchases in many occasions, citing a potential future danger. What is their ultimate goal, and who do they owe their allegiance to? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we will get into, will China lead the new world order? Let's get into both sides of this equation, because of course it's not all one-sided. You need to show both sides. That's what I do here. Show both sides, and the individual can make that decision for themselves. Don't try to do what the mainstream media does and spoon feed everybody talking points. Let's go into this right away. First, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, known as the AIIB. I've covered it here on the show. I'm sure most of you know what that is, but think of it like the IMF, except China is in charge. That's pretty much what we're dealing with here. So what they say is that the IMF, they don't like the terms or the conditions that they put these different nations under. So with China at the helm, they can decide who gets the money, when they get the money, and all of the terms involved. And this here is in direct response to the IMF. That's exactly what it's trying to be. And right off the bat, they thought they would raise something like, let's say, $50 billion, and they raised many multiples of that. So in the future, in the midterm, let's say, we can see that this AIIB will grow significantly. We know that that will be the absolute case. So this is one thing. You have the AIIB, then you move on to the BRICS. Now the BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These nations here have collected together and decided that they need to make a union of their own, and they have so far been rather successful at their collaboration attempts. And ultimately, they're building together, they're working together, and it will be a faction that in the future, in the near term, will be very, very strong and will decide to compete against the West. That's what's happening here. The BRICS nations are very important. Now, while their total of, let's say, GDP or other factors may be small in comparison to some nations. However, when you look at them as a whole, you look at their population, you look at their geographic diversity, you understand that this as a whole is very important. Now, let's look at this. This is the big article for today, and I wanted to touch on a couple points from this. It's big. Now, this shows the other side of the equation. From Australia blocking a bid for power network to the UK's review of a proposed Chinese-funded nuclear plant, opposition to China's outward push is opening a thornier and potentially more treacherous front in the China country's economic tug of war with the rest of the world. It is hosting the G20 coming up. So, G20 here in Toronto, if everyone was watching that one, we saw all the violence taking place. There have been other events at the G8, the G20 all around the world. We'll see if any of that happens here in China. Unlike festering frictions over trade, the new front is an area investment where the global rules of engagement are more amorphous, and it basically goes on. So what they're talking about is the differences in between what's happened before and what's happening right now, as China is really changing everything. They're really leading the forefront here. And what they're talking about is the tensions that are existing at this moment. The implicit accusation when rejecting overseas direct investment is much stronger than trade. Investment by China is far more confronting. It suggests that China is untrustworthy and potentially nefarious intentions. That's what Beijing objects to. Of course, they're going to object to that. I don't know what the inside scoop is, but I'm just bringing it to you here. It is national security, let's say concerns for actual real in this case, when they're trying to buy certain things. And I believe it was this in Australia, I think I brought it up here on the channel, but basically buying into where their military was or a government building or something of those sorts. And that basically just crosses the line, and they're not having that, I assure you. But it's not just security concerns that are driving the increased backlash against stepped up Chinese investment, especially by state-owned companies. And that's one thing. It's not as an individual, a Chinese individual comes over, buys a house, and that's the investment. We're talking about state-owned companies here. So you have to watch how these interact, and they will butt heads, and that's what's happening right now. It's also the suspicion that the communist-led government is trying to game the system by snapping up foreign firms in key areas of the economy while blocking others from doing so in their country. Of course, they want it all, and what person or what country doesn't? So that's what's happening here. Very important to see where China starts to move. This is a game of chess, and we'll see where it all goes. Let's look at this right here as you look at the bilateral swap agreements. Huge. This is important, not covered enough in the mainstream media simply because people don't understand it, but just think of it like this, where countries have to do trade in between each other, not using their own currencies, but they have to change it into US dollars. But here we are looking at this where we have countries agreeing to do a select amount of business in their own currencies. Very important to see how this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and sooner or later they're just going to do away with the US dollar, a feat that is said to be impossible to most individuals out there who know a little bit about what's going on, and then of course the mainstream media as well. Moving on to this, last but not least, as we look at, in this case, it's a document from FAS, Chinese nuclear forces and U.S. nuclear war planning. As you see what's happening, the potential for great disaster along the way in the near future here. So what I've seen is both sides specifically preparing for war against each other, at the same time denying that any of this is happening. So they're both admitting it and denying it. It's very strange. But what I would say is that this is something that is very real, because even though behind the scenes they might be dining with each other and everything is just great, at the same time somebody might accidentally pull the trigger and it could set off World War III. That is a real concern. So, if you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. If you want to look through the book, just head over to Amazon where they have a look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. If you're still here, just wanted to mention that I saw all your comments from yesterday's video and want to thank you for all of that. I'm definitely going to be making this children's book. I feel like it's a good idea. Well, I'll try to do everything I can to make it happen, if it's feasible, of course. And just basically wanted to say that all your positive comments are something that just really helps me out a lot. I'm still writing the next book, or the writing is done. I'm just working through cleaning everything up and just the final touches on it, but it's taken me a long time. I shouldn't even be doing the videos right now, but I just have to get the information out to you. So I'm just going to end it there, and that's it for today. Take care.